Hi, I'm Chris, and I'd like to talk to you about my favorite movie, The Departed. The Departed is a mafia film that follows two cops who are raised in the rough Irish streets of South Boston. They're played by Leonardo DiCaprio, who goes deep undercover amongst the Irish mob, and Matt Damon, who's kind of been mentored by the mob kingpin, played by Jack Nicholson, to go undercover amongst the Boston State Troopers. The film was directed by Martin Scorsese and won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, and it even seemed to spawn a subgenre of Irish cop-type movies, although none of them are really as good as The Departed was. The film is almost flawless, and there's a huge number of things I can talk about, but I'm going to focus on 3 elements which I think are really outstanding. It's the setting itself, the characters and performances, and the editing. First of all, we have the setting. The film is centered around cops and gangsters in Boston, and even though I've never been to the city, Scorsese paints this picture of the city's history, culture, and even religion in the midst of the story. The audience quickly learns of the hard nature of the Irish who inhabit the city, which leads to strong, intriguing characters both as main characters and supporting roles. Scorsese has this incredible ability not only to create interesting characters and dialogue, but to bring out the absolute best performances of his cast. Each actor plays their role flawlessly, to the point that it's difficult to discuss cast because everybody should be mentioned. DiCaprio and Damon fit right into their respective roles. I found myself really feeling for DiCaprio's character, as he does everything he can to avoid this corrupt world he's born into, only to be forced to embrace it. Matt Damon plays this incredible charmer that has everyone convinced that he's the last person who could be a rat. It's only around his real boss that we can see his facade crack, and we understand that there's really a lot more going on below the surface. Jack Nicholson is a terrifying Frank Costello, especially when they're in the restaurant and Nicholas is confronting him about the rat. He has a powerful and frightening presence. He isn't afraid to take risks with the delivery of his lines, and it really pays off. Mark Wahlberg has to be mentioned. Every line that comes out of his mouth is awesome. He's the biggest asshole you've ever met, but you just can't help but love him because he's hilarious. He just nails the role. The other thing that really makes this movie stand out is the incredible job editing. The movie is full of these fast shots that give information in an instant and move on. He's not the originator of this technique, but he is the master. I read somewhere that the average scene length was like 2.7 seconds. Another cool editing technique that Scorsese uses is cutting scenes of dialogue with scenes of action. So it allows the character to describe what he's feeling in that scene without actually being there. There's one where he's talking about how he keeps his hand completely steady when he's around a mass murderer. It flashes to a scene where he's assisting in a murder with somebody else and how he's obviously scared but is able to keep his cool and undercover. And it's just a really effective way of allowing the character to narrate a scene. Overall, I just think it's a fantastic movie. Specifically, the story itself is just really enthralling and all the characters really interesting, and it's really well created and put together, and I find it absolutely entertaining, which I think is ultimately the most important part of a movie. That is why The Departed is my favorite movie. Thanks for listening.